Out of the majority of financial advice that we hear in the world today in America, Brock, how much of it is absolute garbage?
Majority of it.
All right. Nate, do you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
The order in which we do things and why we're doing them, knowing why we're doing them is most important. What's one or two of your favorite questions that you like to ask, Brock, for your clientele, your ideal members, to really make them uncomfortable and how they think about how they think when it comes to traditional advice?
Why are you doing this?
Why do you think that corporations often hire a segment of men that have high debt, kids, a house note? Why do you think that is? Because they're going to be chained to the income forever.
Welcome to the Cashflow Legendz podcast with your hosts Nate, Brandon, and Brock. Remember, our insights are not direct financial advice, so consult with your financial team before making any decisions based on the topics discussed in this show.
Welcome back to Cashflow Legendz. Nate and Brock and I are here excited about discussing today financial advice that will keep you broke. Now, before we hit record, we were talking and Brock said that this may get him on his soapbox today. So I'm looking for the fiery Brock that is excited about talking about the advice we get in the real world and how it keeps us broke. So guys, before we get started on anything tied to money, let's have one little second of gratitude and what you're grateful for today. I just saw you sip a cup of coffee, Brock, or something like that. So that's definitely what I'm grateful for. Nate, one thing you're grateful for.
And there's so many things, but fresh on my mind, I'm grateful for godly men who share wisdom, plain and simple.
I would say I am grateful for my medical team. I have like physical ailment problems, and I'm trying to get better at golf, and there are some things that keep hindering me. So every time I mess up, I get to get on calls and go into the offices of my team, and they get to fix me up, and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, which is nice.
That's good. Mine is going to be a combination of both of yours. It's really relationships and just the opportunity to know God-fearing people who love to bring value, who are experts in their fields. And when you get to visit with them, your cup just overflows because they're just so wired to bring value to you. And there's just not much better than that. If you get to do that, most every day, it doesn't ever feel like work. So on that note, question: out of the majority of financial advice that we hear in the world today in America, Brock, how much of it is absolute garbage?
Majority of it.
All right. Nate, do you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Now, if we agree with that, then we have to then ask the question, how come most people are doing it?
I would think that when you actually think about what's going on, you got to understand that you are working with big institutions, whether that's the government, corporations, or financial institutions, and they are going to teach you to play by a set of rules that benefit them. Why? Because if they can benefit themselves, their business grows, and then their employees, all that stuff. It's like an ever increasing cycle. But once you understand that the rules that they teach you to play by are that they want your money on a consistent, systematic basis over the longest period of time, they want to hold on to it for the longest period of time, and then they want to give it back to you in the smallest increments as possible. Everything else begins to make sense of what the advice is out there. And it gets me fired up if you can't tell. And I just, I wish I could just shake people and say, hey, you quit planning for just what you need and actually reach your maximum financial potential and test what's being told to you.
Nate, Nelson Nash says, in Becoming Your Own Banker, once we know what the problem is, we'll know what to do, which Brock kind of just touched on. What does it require? Because it does not matter how much we know or how much we've been really blessed and fortunate to learn. What does it require, Nate, for somebody to really evaluate what the problem is if they're following traditional advice?
Yeah. Well, I've said this before, the ones that choose to keep you in the dark are the ones that tend to profit the most. And, call it conspiracy or whatever you want to call it. But the reality is, mainstream outlets are publicly traded companies, and their advertisers are publicly traded companies. So the message of financial empowerment at the individual level is never going to be a mainstream thought. It's never going to be pushed into the market the way everything else is. The way, I mean, let's just use Dave Ramsey as an example. He's been given a huge platform by mainstream media to tell people to buy term, invest the difference, essentially.
Yesterday, Nate, I was visiting with a guy in New York, somebody that we've known for quite a while. And his words were, and it'll segue into what you just said about living below your means, because we've heard that before. Okay. His words were, hey, I got out of debt. I'm in my early 30s. I've got a really good retirement plan. It's actually a pension plan. But can what you guys are doing and teaching make what I'm already doing better? To me, that's immediately an indicator of somebody is exhibiting the things that need to be exhibited to grow and learn. Hey, I've done something well. I'm proud of what I did. It's the best current knowledge I have. But is there something I'm missing? Or is there something else I could do to make what I'm already doing really well better?
That's right.
And Brock, I don't know about you, but when I hear those kind of comments, I get fired up. I'm like, this is going to be a blast.
Yeah.
Because you shift from convincing, which we're not in the convincing world. If we have to convince anybody of anything, we're wasting each other's time.
That's right.
And so when you hear, Brock, somebody say, well, I'm just going to live below my means just until I get this taken care of. What kind of emotion does that incite in you when you hear that advice being taken, living below your means?
If you couldn't tell, when you said that to me, my adrenaline just shot through the roof.
Yep.
But I think that what often happens is people make financial decisions with different people for different reasons under different circumstances at different times. And all of their financial decisions are siloed transactions, not understanding how you coordinate it with everything, how it's integrated with everything else within your financial life in today's world with what you own, but also through the 3 stages of wealth that you have. And they're only thinking, what is the internal rate of return? Well, what's the external rate of return? What's the eternal rate of return? How are you looking at your financial picture on one page that's coordinated and integrated together? And when you think of somebody's like, oh, well, I'll just live below my means. Well, why didn't you do that for the first 20 years that you've been in the workforce, or 10 years you've been in the workforce? Is it just going to all of a sudden change out of nowhere? I mean, most budgets, most things that people go through financially are just like a diet. They'll last for maybe a month or 2, and then you're done because one little slip up, and then you miss 2 days, then it's 3 days, then it's 5 days, then it's a week, and then it's 2, then it's a month, and then you're done.
What I hear you referring to, and I've had this conversation a lot, is we all have habits, which can also be associated with systems or lack thereof, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
And been visiting. I had a beautiful drive down to Port Neches, Texas, to visit with some potential ULC members, and had a great conversation. And it was really cool, husband and wife. And I was able to pick their brains. They have kids in their around your age, Brock, or a little bit older, mid to upper 20s. And I was able to pick their brain on, hey, if you could go back and you could redo parenting, what would you tell yourself? Although we were talking about money, it's never about money first. It's about behavior, mindset, peace of mind, control of time, experiences. And they both said something different, but it connected together. He said, chill out and be present. And she said, understand that they are all unique and going to be wired in a way that is the way God made them. What I heard from that when we were talking was when he said, chill out and be present, I said, knowing what you know now about our process and what you've learned, which they've chosen to learn and get uncomfortable, what would you go back and tell yourself? And he basically said along the same lines of what we're talking about. I would really take a long, hard look at what everybody says you should do. Because he said, I've been fighting this system for 20 years, and now I'm almost trapped in fear of trying to get out of it, even though I see on the other side that this is a better way. So, Brock, one of the things that we hear often in the traditional financial world that we are all agreeing is created by the powers that be to keep us broke. We all three are confident in that. That's not us making that up or being conspiracy theorists. We're confident in that. We also then hear, hey, just live below your means. You'll eventually make it. What about that is so flawed if you haven't realized yet that the system's being built to keep you broke?
I would say that is a great idea, that you should live below your means. Like, it's the number one rule of finance. Like,
Yep.
don't spend as much as you make. However, it's only one piece of the whole entire puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
You got to protect that. You got to grow it. If you live below your means, but you stick it under your mattress, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you go put it somewhere, now you put it at risk. What are you doing to ensure the fact that your money gets to its maximum financial potential, and so do you?
Mm-hmm.
How are you protecting those things? So I think that's great. However, that's only one piece of the whole puzzle, and you got to do a whole lot more than just live below your means.
I had this conversation recently, Nate, and it's come up many, many different times lately. I heard Myron Golden say this. There always has to be two sides to everything, right? You can't have one piece of paper on one side without the other side of the piece of paper. You can't have hot without cold, dark without light. You can't have one side of the coin without the other. But specifically on the coin, we are taught to focus on either the heads or the tails in our society. Oh, only be a cash person, or oh, only finance things. Oh, only be a stock market person, or only put your money in cash over here. Whatever it is, there's always two sides. But what we have the privilege of knowing is that there's actually an edge on that coin. And there's actually an edge on almost everything when it comes to how we think about how we think, which is what Nelson Nash said in Becoming Your Own Banker. The fifth principle is rethink your thinking. So here's a real simple way to think about if traditional financial advice is working for you. Are you where you want to be and completely confident and content you're headed in the direction you want to go, and that you're going to get there in a way that maximizes your full potential? Just sit in that question for a minute. And then that'll help you, Nate, I believe, get closer to this idea of what you think living below your means, because it's not bad advice in the general sense. That is the number one rule. Keep more than you make, right? But then what? So, Nate, when you hear live below your means, do you get kind of a gag reflux, or, a little uncomfortable feeling in your stomach, like some reflux or something when you hear that? I know I do from all my Dave Ramsey years.
Yeah, I mean, it just reminds me that, that's such a prevalent thought out there in the mainstream world of finance, is live below your means. So when you hear people say live below your means, well, that's just common sense. Like, I mean, it's just common sense. Like, you have to live below your means.
You would think it'd be common sense.
Yeah.
But some people spend more than they make.
Yep.
Well, let's go with that. That's a great connection. We've got this advice of live below your means, which we're trying to do and hardly ever accomplishing. Because on the other side of the coin, spend, 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 consume, 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 and everything is built to systematically take money out of your life. The only problem is while we're living, we have no clue that's going on, except you and I, and we all hear daily. I heard it 3 times yesterday. I don't know where all my money goes. And I made so much last year. Or I got a bonus and I don't know where it is. So that immediately brings us to the reality of we have to think differently.
Yeah, and then you've got people who opt into various retirement plans and everything like that, and it gets deducted from their paycheck. So they're taught to forego the use of that money for 20, 30, 40 years, not recognizing what type of value could be injected back into their life if they understood how to properly apply it, how to properly use it.
Brock, let's go to another one. So we've got live below your means. I'm going to reestablish again that we believe traditional financial advice almost always will keep somebody broke and treading water and chained to the system. I was reading a study yesterday that said, why do you think that corporations often hire a segment of men that have high debt, kids, a house note? Why do you think that is? Because they're going to be chained to the income forever.
Yep.
And so we have live below your means. When I hear live below my means now, because I did that aggressively with intention for 10 plus years, I can tell you with certainty that I've spent the last 7 years overcoming scarcity. Now, I'm not saying living below my means was bad, but if I could have had coaching and understanding to go, while you're being disciplined with how money flows in and out of your life, here's a better place to put it. Here's a better way to treat it. Here's a better way to think about it. And this is tied to your greatest potential, your income earning potential. Let's see if we can make it do multiple things at once, safely, soundly, with peace of mind. I could have accomplished the same things I was accomplishing by living below my means and had way more abundance at the same time. It doesn't always have to be either or. It actually can often be, I do this and this. And is such a powerful word. Or is restrictive. It creates a miser, it creates a scarcity mindset. It creates, I'm not ever going to go buy a $5 cup of coffee because I got to retire with that extra $5 in somebody else's system for the next 30 years. That sounds awful. I love coffee. I don't love Starbucks coffee, but I love coffee. That sounds terrible. Why do we walk around living this way? Here's another one that pairs with that. Brock, pay off all your debt as fast as possible. Just don't even worry about the impact it has on you. Don't worry about the peace of mind. Don't worry about the benefits it could bring you. Just pay it all off as fast as possible. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that there is some merit to it.
100%.
I work with all kinds of doctors and dentists and surgeons all over the place, helping them, pay off their debt. Young families paying off their debt, but you got to realize that there's an order in which we do things.
There we go.
Let me say that again. There is an importance in the order in which we do things. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes there are some things like a young family and they are like, well, we're paying as much extra as we can on our house or our car or student loans. And yet you look at their financial life, their financial model, and yet they don't even have 3 months of expenses saved up. Well, newsflash, if something happens, guess what? You go right back into debt. And some young families might say, oh, well, our parents might help us out. Time to grow up. Like, take care of yourself. I love my parents would take care of me. But at the same time, I know I would pay them back because what you take from them is also costing them in their own financial life. And so the order in which you do things is extremely important. And just because you want to pay off debt doesn't mean that you have to pay it off as early as possible. What are the other things that you want to do? So rather than just taking a product approach of paying things off early, What if you took a strategy approach that you did the same thing, but you saved the money elsewhere so that when you got to that date and you could pay it off, you had a decision that you could make of paying it off or doing something else with it.
Mm. So
But most
Nate,
people,
okay.
Brandon, most people can't do that because they want to make siloed decisions and they've never been able to see their financial life on one page. Well, part of the fact is you got to test what you're going to go through. Does it make sense to do this? And does it make sense to do this in coordination with the rest of my financial life rather than just one simple, pinpointed, targeted approach?
Nate, Brock interacts with a group of mindsets and people that we do some, but we also interact with a lot of people that have real bad debt and they're trying to get out of that bad debt. So what does bad debt mean? It means it's taking more money out of your pocket than you can make anywhere else if you were putting it somewhere else. Normally that's credit card debt, vehicle loans, depending on your credit score, those kind of things. So those debts are great to get rid of with a proper order of operation. So let me give you a specific example of a great question to help somebody listening think through this. If you've been paying 29% on a credit card for the last year, do you think it might be worth slowing down enough to create a 3-month reserve to then have the choice to decide what to do next, even if you don't overpay on those credit cards? Will that give you more peace of mind? Will that keep you from going below zero, as Brock just described? What we find often in our conversations, Nate, is that when we have that willingness from the person we have the pleasure of working with to think about their thinking and go, oh, I've been stopping 1 or 2 layers too short on my thinking. I go one more layer deeper or another layer deeper, I go, that makes sense. I would have a whole lot more peace of mind if I had a reservoir of money that I controlled to allow for the unforeseen things that happen, which seem to happen every day, if we're being really honest, or every week or every month. And then I can have more clarity and peace of mind of what I do next.
I think, Brandon, one of the things as you're talking, and we're talking about the order in which we do things and slowing down, I think one of the most common things that I know all of us run into is the client will come in or the practice member will come in and you'll notice that they have all of this debt on one side of their page, paying exuberant amounts of interest and high monthly payments, but yet they're wanting to invest in the market, they're investing in their 401k when they don't realize like that 401k and investing in the market is what's causing that debt to continue to grow. And most people don't most people's minds can't put those two together, which is, oh, well, if I'm logically, mathematically, economically speaking here, what I'm saying by investing my money in the 401k or retirement plan or whatever and the market, I'm saying I can outpace or get a greater rate of return that will produce more than what the debt is doing in my life, which nobody does math, but those numbers are astronomical. You're not going to get that in a retirement plan or the market. You would be far better off if you took that same amount of money and did pay it towards the debt, right? The order in which we do things here is extremely important. And oftentimes one of those pieces is you're focused on building like a retirement account or a market account, but yet not focusing on the debt. Well, if you took care of the debt and the minimum monthly payment was $200 a month, you'd have to take that same amount of money, put it in the market, and have a rate of return and amount of money that produced that same $200 a month.
Yep. Nate,
So-
what are you thinking?
Well, going back to Nelson, when you understand the problem, you'll know what to do. We never tell people what to do with their retirement funds or anything like that. But often what we find is as we're teaching and helping people understand the impact of their decisions, they will often say, well, I could take that money that I'm putting in my 401k right now and start funding this instead to get me in a better position. And, one of the things we talk about so often is don't worry about investing in assets until you've invested in yourself. And investing in yourself a part of that is getting yourself out of debt, because that's going to increase your level of peace of mind. Um, and the beauty of what we get to do and some of the tools that we use is we can test different decisions, map out some different scenarios so that you get to see on paper what the impact of those decisions might look like.
All those thoughts that you guys have that are excellent bring us back to where we started, that Brock said that we are conditioned to believe that all of our financial decisions is segmented in different silos or departments. And so if you ask a simple question, my goal and challenge in Q2 for myself is do simple better, or keep it simple. We ask a simple question. Have you ever had all of the people that you send money to that are helping you succeed financially? I did air quotes for anybody listening. Okay. Have you ever had them all sitting at a round table in your house going, how are you all working to make what I'm doing better? Have you ever had them go, what does wealth and freedom mean to you? Because here's the thing. If you don't ever see yourself retiring at age 65, and you can't wait to work a life of purpose in an area that you're passionate about, wouldn't it only make sense to consider other options than locking away your money for 40 years? I don't know. But here's the thing. We do what everyone else does because we think our identity is in what everyone else does instead of us understanding what we need to do. And that's different for everybody. And so I got asked this the other day, guys. Did you really move all your money out of all your traditional accounts, retirement-wise, and go all in on how you think about money now by using whole life insurance, controlling the banking function, taking over the debt in my life? I said, yes. They said, why did you do that? I said, because I tried it the other way for 15 years, roughly, and I had the ability to compare it to what I was going to do. And this way that I'm doing it now is way safer than that ever was. And it made them very uncomfortable, because what do we associate with traditional financial advice?
It's safe.
It's safe. Put your money in a savings account because it's safe. What's comical about that is it's not even in a safe there. It is literally being had done to that deposit the opposite of what they're telling you to do with it. So right back, Nate, we're at, if we know what the problem is, let me back up. If we're willing to think about, is there a problem? And then we're willing to explore what the problem is, then we become more and more clear on what we can do about the problem to make it to where we're not just flailing around like trying to stay above water as the system's trying to drown us. When we think about those thought processes, what is one of the most practical ways? Give me one of y'all's favorite questions to ask when it comes to traditional thinking. You know, live below your means, save money in a savings account, invest your money in the market for the rest of your life. Whatever it is, none of those are wrong in and of themselves. Going back to Brock's point, the order in which we do things and why we're doing them and knowing why we're doing them is most important. What's one or two of your favorite questions that you like to ask, Brock, for your clientele, your ideal members, to really make them uncomfortable in how they think about how they think when it comes to traditional advice?
Why are you doing this? You know, I
expand on that.
Why are you doing this thing?
Yeah.
That would be my expansion. You know, whenever I'm looking at somebody's financial life, they come in majority of the time. I mean majority of the time. Nobody could tell you a good reason why. They just thought, well, I thought this is what I was supposed to do. Like, that's just what I've done. And yeah, it absolutely is. But, you know, when did you test or verify that that thing was best for you and your family and what you wanted to do? Nobody questions or wants to test what they're doing to see if it's the right thing to do and what they want life to look like later. Like, nobody ever asks the question, well, what do I want retirement to look like? Hardly ever does somebody actually roll through that and thinks through what's going to happen in retirement. What are they going to do? How are they going to spend their time? Who are they going to spend it with? How are they going to spend money? My favorite is like, oh, well, I'll be in a lower tax bracket. That means you are going to take less income. I have yet to find a person who retires on Friday and on Monday they cut their expenses in half.
Yep. That's exactly right. And when you realize that, the toughest hurdle to cross over, if you're willing to sit and be asked those questions, is the humility it requires to go, there's something flawed with my thinking. Now we're getting into the whole pride piece. And we all got pride somewhere because we crave comfort, even if it's bad for us. So we're always making decisions between comfort and pain. And no matter how you dice it, Nate, if something's going to be worth it, we have to be really clear on why. And there's probably, I'm almost certainly, going to be some discomfort or some pain to make a change. Would you agree?
For sure. The reality is pain is necessary for growth. And so if you're just resting in comfort, then you're probably not growing.
Yeah. I think about our beautiful trees we have in East Texas. And, let's reassociate what pain is. If a tree is one of those majestic oaks that we see around here that's been around for 50, 75, 100 years, it's got a gigantic root system. It's got all kinds of, limbs, tons of shade. It went through a whole lot of years of growing below the surface that nobody saw to stabilize the root system of what it carries above ground. And it required enduring wind, rain, tornadoes, storms, all kinds of things that it had no control over other than how it reacted to it. So y'all don't get to see behind the scenes a lot of times, but how we think about how we think and who we hang out with has a lot to do with the type of momentum that we create in our life. And so Brock and Nate and I all invite each other to hold each other accountable for being the best version of ourselves. That is sometimes uncomfortable because you get asked questions that make you go, I know I'm not in the right headspace and you're trying to call me out of it. And I don't want to be called out of it because we like to stay there. That's all of us, especially when things aren't going well. And that is relevant to money. So when Brock says his favorite question is, why are you doing this? That question works in anything. You don't like how you feel after you get off work? Why? You don't like how you feel when you wake up in the morning? Why? You don't like how you and your wife are not communicating? Why? I mean, you can keep going and get real uncomfortable real fast. I can tell you from my experience of not liking all but 3 of those questions, it has to do with this guy right here. And the way this guy's thinking and the way this guy's hanging out with who he's hanging out with and the things that he's inputting. Because input is a direct correlation with output. Don't matter how you dice it, it's that simple. So if you are somewhere in your financial life where you're like, I am not where I think I should be, there's something I'm missing. There's got to be a different way. This is not working. Or could what I'm already doing be better? What is the downside of exploring adding a new pathway to your brain or unlearning something to learn something new? Is there really a downside, guys, in the grand scheme?
No. My favorite thing is if you want to learn something or you don't know if it's going to work, just test it. Find out. Go test it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's
the worst case scenario is you're going to learn something new. I tell people this all the time when they're thinking about going through our process. Worst case scenario is you're going to learn something new. Best case scenario is it's going to change your life the way it did ours.
Yep.
So what's the downside of those 2 options?
Nothing really. Nothing at all. And those 2 comments are great if we want to be great at anything, we have to be willing to put time into it, period, which is testing it and thinking about how you think and putting in investing time to learn what you don't know.
That's right.
And Nate, Brock, and I can say with certainty that the minute you hear us talking about we got it all figured out and we're not learning anything anymore, you should stop listening to this podcast, because that should never end. It should be an ongoing thing where we always learn new things. So we hope this brought value to you today. We hope that you enjoyed us getting on our soapbox, coming from guys who've seen the traditional model lived, who've lived it themselves in some capacity, who know it's made to keep you broke. We know that. We want to see if you're willing to explore that. So check us out on cashflowlegendz.com. You can see all of our former podcasts. You can set up a call with Nate or Brock and our team, and you can see if you want to put some energy towards rethinking your thinking, as Nelson said. Until the next time, we hope you have a great rest of your week. We are grateful that you take time to listen to us, visit about things that we enjoy and are passionate about. And most importantly, we hope it brings value to your life and more specifically your walk with the Lord. We hope you have a blessed day.